Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our Catalan opening studies. So in these studies we have seen so many variations, many sidelines, many opportunities for white and from black in this very sharp opening, and today we're continuing with our open defense of the Catalan opening. The open defense is when black is taking out the pawn on c4, immediately play d takes c4, the position in the center explodes, and then afterwards there are many sidelines. We have analyzed the a6 sideline, we have seen also the bishop to e7 sideline, bishop to b4, classical systems and similar stuff. Today we are continuing with the c6 approach. The c6 approach is a very common and very nice positional approach of blacks. When black takes out the pawn on c4, black wants to connect very fast. His pawns on the queen side is trying to get a grip with b5, a6, bishop to b7, is trying to hold the position here on the queen side, and then afterwards continue simply the game with an extra pawn. And white has of course his own possibilities. White will simply rely on this long diagonal of the light square bishop, will somehow try to liberate diagonal, and then slowly but surely, when black fixes the structure with the move b5, tries to break it, and with b3, a4 tries to somehow disconnect the pawns on the queen side, and then, as I said, simply get use of the long diagonal of the light square bishop. And the instructive game that we're following now in this approach, so open defense with d takes c4 followed with c6, is an amazing game played by Magnus Carlsen against Dreev back from 2021, in which I think many very important concepts and ideas of this sidelines have been played. So in my opinion, really instructive game. But when Magnus Carlsen is playing the Catalan with the white pieces, you can expect really something special. Here you see also cool tactics, but then also cool middle game ideas, but then also cool endgame strategies. So in my opinion, really an epic game, really beautiful, worth to follow. So let's see now the game from the beginning. Let's see how to reach this position. The game in the beginning started a little bit different, then transposed into the structures of the Catalan opening. Magnus Carlsen opened with the move d4. Drev's response was d5, knight to f3, knight to f6, and after move g3, we have now the pseudo Catalan setup. So basically we're trying to reach the Catalan position with the move g3, bishop to g2, but so far we are delaying the move c4. We are waiting, then afterwards we'll play this move. So now after move c4, now we have this approach, as I said, d takes c4, immediately the open defense with this sideline with the potential move c6. And now Magnus Carlsen simply develops. As promised, Dreev is fixing the structure here on the queen side. So I think black can hold the position on the queen side because black has played now very fast in order to defend the structure. So kingside calcing, we have bishop to b7, we have knight to e5. This is a very nice approach of Magnus Carlsen, hits the pawn on c6 immediately, and it's not allowing now here some moves like knight to d7 to happen. If that happens, of course, immediately the pawn on c6 is hanging. For instance, if black continues now with the move knight from f to d7, I think if you are playing the Catalan opening with the white pieces, you have to know this sideline. It's a very unpleasant maybe line to meet in the beginning, but if you know what you're doing, I think this is not something that should bother you. Of course, the main threat is the move f6, kicking away maybe the knight here from e5, or maybe even play knight takes e5 after d takes e5. The queens would be off the board, and I can guarantee you, when black is playing the game with in the Catalan opening, especially in the open defense, when many tactics can happen, then I guarantee you black will simply love to trade off the queens, because when the queens are off the board, the game is not so complicated, the game is not so active. So that's why with the move knight from f to d7, black is immediately threatening the trades of queens. But you can now continue in a good way. You can play bishop to f4, and this is a sideline that I really wanted to show you. It's something that I've prepared at home. I wanted to share it, of course, with you. Here, if now knight takes e5 happens, actually you can even take out with the pawn d takes e5, and probably your opponent will be greedy here, is hoping here, okay, finally I can release the pressure here, I got the queens off the board. But actually I guarantee you, also here that black will not have fun now in this particular game. Black will probably play something like e6, but now we hit here the flanks with the move a4. If a6 happens, then we play a takes b5. C takes b5 obviously cannot be played because of this tactics on the long diagonal, so that's why a takes b5 has to be played. And now we hit the rook here. Rook takes a8, bishop to a8, and now knight to c3. Knight to c3 is, I think, creating already a devastating position for black, with the threat immediately to play knight to b5. Now black can maybe try something like bishop to b7, but we can even use the attack on the a file. Knight to b5 is always working, so if of course c takes b5 happens, we'll simply pick up the bishop and continue the game with a beautiful bishop pair. So rook to a7 is now an opportunity. So in my opinion, this is not a good game here for black. So let's go back. After move knight from f to d7 and bishop to f4, your opponent could try maybe here something like f6, but again, don't worry, we takes, and now again with the same plan, a4. He can even hit the center here with move e5, but now we have a counter play here, beautiful counter play. A takes b5. If it takes out now the bishop, we have this one, b takes c6. We are letting this pawn roll with the support of the bishop, with the activity of the rook on the a file, with the possibility when the knight comes into the game also d5 is a huge opportunity, connecting two passers here in the center of the board that would of course cause many tactical damage in black's position. So in my opinion, this whole concept that I've seen many times has been played is not working, I think, here also for black. So let's go back. After move knight to e5, we're following now again the game between Magnus Carlsen and Alexei Dreev. Here Alexei Dreev played now the move e6. Also, what is the problem here? That you wanted with the move e6, you want to fix the structure with the move knight to d5. You're trying somehow to lock the diagonal that white is now liberated by playing the move knight to e5. So Magnus Carlsen continues now with the normal plan, b3 or a4. These are the basic concepts here. We're trying to split the pawn and we're trying to provoke some pawn weaknesses on the queen side. So c takes b3, we have a takes b3, and now Dreev played knight from b to d7, challenged now the knight in the center of the board, leaves now simply the pawn on c6 unprotected. Probably a better way here for black is to play this kind of an approach with the move a6, but still then bishop to b2 is the continuation here for white. White can build a beautiful double fianchetto setup. Probably black will simply play bishop to e7, and now after something like knight from b to d2, there is always one problem also in black's position. We will eventually play rook to c1, and then maybe knight to d3, and then fix the structure around the square c5. There is now obviously a weakness in black's camp, and it's simply the weak c5 square. Also, there is a pawn weakness on c6, so we will simply continue the pressure with rook to c1, and maybe later, if somehow this pawn gets protected, knight to d3, knight to c5, fixing simply the structure around the square. So in my opinion, again, possible to play for both sides because black is simply up a pawn. Black has defended so far the position in a good way, but here Dreev, after move a takes b3, played a more aggressive approach. He wanted to have immediately a simplification here on the queen side. He doesn't want to play with his pawn weakness on c6, leaves now this pawn unprotected, and now hopes to get something with this extra tempo with the move queen to b6. Now Magnus Carlsen spiced it up, and that's what I really liked about this game, because probably if you maybe play the game with the white pieces, you could reach a similar position, maybe not the same. And now one beautiful motif happened here. Here Magnus played the beautiful d5 move, and in the beginning it seemed to me, why should Magnus Carlsen play the move d5? Because if we take with the knight or with the pawn, probably white will never really give up the powerful light square bishop for a knight in the Catalan opening. It would be, I think, a suicide. But Magnus Carlsen had a really cool idea in mind. After knight to d5, he didn't want to take out now the knight. He played now the beautiful knight to a5, hitting the bishop on b7. Now after rook to d8, we have knight takes b7, queen to b7, and now Magnus plays a beautiful move, knight to c3. Hitting now the knight on d5, Dreev goes into a tactical sequence, knight takes c3, bishop to b7, knight takes d1, rook to d1, and now bishop to c5. But okay, Dreev defended now the pawn on a7, is also one move far away from Carlsen in order to secure the position in a fully manner, but Magnus Carlsen is simply more active, and here Magnus Carlsen made maybe his only inaccuracy in the game. He should have played simply a calm move, bishop to c6. Nothing wrong also with the other move that he played, but I think already black would face many positional problems. For instance, you have to play something like king to e7, kingside castling is not an opportunity anymore. You play king to e7, then bishop to b2, f6, and now we simply pick up this pawn. And in this battle where white is having a bishop pair in an open battle like this, I think white should be much better. But Magnus Carlsen played move bishop to b2. Now Dreev simply castled. So now there are no activities around this knight on d7, so that's why rook to c1 was played by Magnus Carlsen, with the threat, of course, in some lines. So far not possible, but there is always the tension maybe to play something like rook to d7, rook takes d7, and then rook to c5. So far it's not possible because rook to d7 would come with a direct threat against the bishop, but maybe in the later stage of the game. Here bishop to b4 was played by Dreev. He didn't want to risk anything. He didn't want to have this knight overloaded here on d7. Now Magnus attacks the position further, rook to d4, knight to c5. Magnus grabs now the bishop. Dreev grabs now also here the piece on b7, but now finally Magnus has his pawn back, and this game reaches now the fully endgame stage. And again, here a slightly better position probably for white because of the better activity, because the rooks are more active. The bishop is targeting here. The bishop is open, has also where to attack, and also we have to say this pawn on a7 is a weakness. But if black still, I think, plays this game correctly, this should be perfectly fine. This should be a drawish position. But Dreev played now rook to d7, maybe a slightly passive move. Bishop to a3, we have a rook to d8, and now rook to c6, h6, creating breathing spaces. And now Magnus uses this moment and attacks now the weakness on a7. And what should you do here? Dreev tried this idea, bishop knight to d6, we have bishop to d6, rook to d6, and now Magnus simply grabbed one pawn. And okay, still a tough battle, still a struggle, but you know how Magnus is playing this kind of an endgame. This is almost impossible to compete here against Magnus Carlsen anymore. He's simply the endgame beast, the endgame goat, whatever you like to say, but he's simply converting this kind of an endgames. And probably if Magnus Carlsen would have somehow played this game with the black pieces, this could still probably be a draw. So it's simply his part of the game, the end game stage. Now after move rook takes a7, Magnus is up a pawn. g5 was played by Dreev, rook to b7, getting use of the 7th rank. You have to protect now, and here Magnus simplified the game by trading off the rooks. And here after move g4, rook to c3, Magnus simply pushed the pawn further. We have king to g7, king to g2, Magnus simply pushed the pawn further. Again f5, trying to maybe create some dynamics. But actually in this types of endgames, when you play with down a pawn, you should not touch your pawns. You should just wait a little bit. Here when you play f5 like this, then you expose your own king, and you see now Magnus uses now this moment, plays h3, h5, g takes h5, king to h5. Now Magnus is going behind. We have to play king to g6, b7, and now we have to play king to g7. If you don't play it, of course, you know this pattern, rook to g8, check, and then we promote here to queen. So that's why you have to play here king to g7. And now Magnus Carlsen played the call move, e3, e5, f3, and here after move rook to b1, e4 by Magnus, f takes e4, f takes e4, and after rook to b3, king to f2. In this position, actually, Alexei Dreev resigned. Why did he resign? Because you cannot hold basically everything here. You can maybe hold the 3rd rank, but Magnus Carlsen will eventually get the king here, and then when the king comes on the square d5, then of course this pawn will be lost. And the problem here in black's position is that Dreev can never really play with the king. Wherever he goes with the king, the only squares that black can use in this position is of course the h7 square or maybe the g7 square. If you move to f6, then of course we saw this pattern, rook to f8 check, promoting. And even if you play something like king to f7, then again with the same pattern we play rook to h8. But now if you take it out, then you get a check on the 7th rank and you lose the piece. It's game over, of course, for black. So as I said, it was fair decision to resign in this battle, but Magnus Carlsen outplayed here Dreev in the endgame stage. In my opinion, very beautiful game with cool opening theory with cool middle game strategies, and then afterwards with some cool tactics in the endgame stage. Really a beautiful gameplay by Magnus Carlsen. So okay, this will be now our study about this c6 approach of the Catalan opening. We'll see more games, not only where white is winning, we'll see also some winning games by black, because this is a decent setup. This is a normal setup for black to compete somehow against the Catalan approach. In my opinion, you see sometimes black has also great ideas. Black is winning sometimes also the game. So in my opinion, it will be still a dynamic here lecture for us, this c6 approach by black in the Catalan opening. So okay, if you're interested more into this amazing chess opening, into the Catalan, check out our Catalan opening studies. Here's the link of our playlist. We have created more than 30 videos, so you can check it out. Have a great preparation in this amazing chess opening. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.